it's the witness of the bishop, the church, the local church, to confessing the faith. That's what gives him authority. If he hasn't done that, and he's heaped wrong teaching on wrong teaching, I guess my question is why would they immediately resume without deep repentance for all those teachings? Why would they resume a position of authority, again?
Feelings about something or a specific country.
Yeah, there's a weird hangover from the Cold War is all I can figure. And it's like that there's still some sort of communist regime leading Russia right now. It's almost like if we just assumed everyone in Germany was a word that I can't say or I'll get flagged. But you know what I'm saying? No one looks at Germany and says, oh, well, they still want to do this to these groups of people. It's like, that's done. That war's over with. Like everyone's moved on from that. It's bizarre.
And he began to speak in distinctively Russian, neo-Orthodox, civilizational terms. And there's just no way around it. Say what you want about the guy. Say, I don't like how he runs, blah, blah. I'm sorry. It's irrelevant to the fact that this man, more than I think anyone else, has embodied the spirit of the revitalization of an ancient civilization and an ancient theology of church and state known as Symphonia, more than anyone else we've seen literally since Tsar Nicholas.
Until today, Chabad owns Russia. Putin is a Chabadnik.
When you hear neocons, mama, that means the Jews, 'cause that's who they is, mama. Just say the Jews, don't call them neocons, mama. Just say the Jews. Just say the Jews, mom. Just say the Jews. Break the Jew taboo, boys. Let's break the Jew taboo. Just say the word, boys. Break the Jew taboo. To break the Jew taboo, boys. Break the Jew taboo. Just say the Jews, boys. Break the Jew taboo. When they say donor class, Papa, that means the Jews, 'cause that's who they is, Pops. Just say the Jews, don't say the donor class, Papa. Just say the Jews. Just say the Jews, Papa. Just say the Jews. Break the Jew taboo, boys. Let's break the Jew taboo. Just say the word, boys. Break the Jew taboo. Break the Jew taboo, boys. Break the Jew taboo. Just say the Jews, boys. Break the Jew taboo. That means the Jews, 'cause that's who they is, sis. Just say the Jews, don't talk about Wall Street, sister. Just say the Jews. Just say the Jews, sister. Just say the Jews. Break the Jew taboo, boys. Let's break the Jew taboo. Just say the word, boys. Break the Jew taboo. Break the Jew taboo, boys. Break the Jew taboo. Just say the Jews, boys. Break the Jew taboo. Zionist, mama, that means the Jews, 'cause that's who they is, mama. Just say the Jews, don't mince your words, mama. Just say the Jews. Just say the Jews, mama. Just say the Jews. Break the Jew taboo, boys. Let's break the Jew taboo. Just say the word, boys. Break the Jew taboo. Break the Jew taboo, boys. Break the Jew taboo. Just say the Jews, boys, break the Jew taboo. When you hear Israelis, mama, that means the Jews, 'cause that's who they is, mama. Just say the Jews, don't say Israelis, mama. Just say the Jews. Just say the Jews, mama. Just say the Jews. Break the Jew taboo, boys, let's break the Jew taboo. Just say the word, boys, break the Jew taboo. Break the Jew taboo, boys, break the Jew taboo. Just say the Jews, boys, break the Jew taboo. Well, when you hear Hollywood, honey, that means the Jews, 'cause that's who they is, darling. Just say the Jews. You see that Hollywood, honey, is culture Jews. Sing, just say the Jews, darling. Just say the Jews. feel so free now. Hot dang, it's okay, mama. You can say it, just say it, the Jews. Here, it's all right, huh? You can say it too. It's the Jews. See, it's the Jews.
The two new ideas in them, however, are 1. They are not atheistic. They believe in one world religion. They say in the 14th Protocol, "When we come into our kingdom, it will be undesirable for us that there should exist any other religion than ours of the one God, with whom our destiny is bound up by our position as the chosen people, and through whom our same destiny is united with the destinies of the world. We must therefore sweep away all other forms of belief. If this gives birth to the atheists whom we see today, it will not, being only a transitional stage, interfere with our views, but will serve as a warning for those generations who will hearken to our preaching of the religion of Moses, that, by its stable and thoroughly elaborated system, has brought all the peoples of the world into subjection to us. Therein we shall emphasize its mystical right." Of course, this is in accord with the more profound revolutionaries who saw that the revolution must become religious in the end. Atheism is only a transition in order to get rid of previous religious views. In the meantime, while we are re-educating youth in new traditional religions, and afterwards in ours, we shall not overtly lay a finger on existing churches, but we shall fight against them by criticism calculated to produce schism. The second new ingredient in this revolutionary proposal is that there will be one world monarch. The third protocol reads as follows: "Ever since that time we have been leading the peoples from one disenchantment to another, so that in the end they should turn also from us in favor of that king despot of the blood of Zion, whom we are preparing for the world. It is probably all the same to the world who is its sovereign lord, whether this be the head of Catholicism or our despot of the blood of Zion."
What excited the Khazars was that Kabbalah preached revolution. It said that Jews, as superior beings, were destined to rule the world. In the Zohar, which is the written text of Kabbalistic lore, we find the arrogance and ambition of the ancient Pharisees very much alive.
In a typical passage, the Zohar teaches, living soul refers to Israel, who have holy living souls from above, and cattle and creeping thing and beasts of the earth to the other peoples who are not living soul. Only by the overthrow of the Gentiles, the Zohar asserts, can Israel regain its position as God's Shekinah glory on earth. The Zohar calls Gentiles Amalekites. In a passage typical of many, the Zohar says they caused the destruction of the temple. So when God reveals himself, they will be wiped off the earth. Redemption will not be complete until Amalek will be exterminated. But once Israel shakes off Gentile dominion and Christian influence, heaven will descend to earth. The Zohar says Israel will fulfill her predestined role, ruling the world under the leadership of her Messiah.
Since the Kabbalah or Zohar was not merely a theological system, but taught the overthrow of the existing order, it was natural that before long, Jews should begin to put it into practice. With the age of Voltaire and the so-called Enlightenment during the 18th century, we see a host of Jewish Kabbalists migrating west out of Poland and penetrating the very capitals of Europe. Jewish wonder workers, Balshems as they were called, Saint Germain, Cagliostro, Frank, Falk, Men of vast wealth and mystery came upon the European scene at the end of the 18th century.
In Europe, in the years preceding the French Revolution, the foundations were laid for a new order in the world. Kabbalists such as Adam Weishaupt helped establish the ultra-secret Illuminati, which became a cover for plots and intrigues that would begin the erosion of Christian civilization. At the same time, beginning with Jewish philosopher Moses Mendelssohn, many Jews began to perceive their religion not simply as a means of personal salvation, but as a way to reform society at large. Many Jewish activists said that, starting with such revolutionaries as Moses and the prophets, Israel had always had the social objective of righting injustice and taking the part of the downtrodden. It was the duty of every Jew, they said, to come to the aid of the oppressed working masses, called the proletariat, in their historic struggle against capitalistic bondage. Many Jews thus came out of the ghetto and took part in all the great revolutions of the 19th century, including the Revolution of 1829 and the Revolution of 1848. It is thus not surprising that as the 20th century dawns, we find Jews turning their attentions to the overthrow of one of the last monarchies still opposing Jewish advancement, the Romanov dynasty of Russia. It is well known that the Jews had long hoped to overthrow the Tsar. It was natural then that Jewish philosophers such as Moses Hess and Karl Marx should contrive a philosophy that could make such overthrow possible. It was also natural that international Jewish bankers of New York, London, and Hamburg should finance it. The U.S. State Department, in its 3-volume report on the origins of communism in Russia, published in 1931, reveals how Jewish-controlled German banks under the leadership of Max Warburg conspired as early as 1914 to send large payments to Lenin, Trotsky, and others in their attempts to bring down the Tsar. As part of this conspiracy, Jacob Schiff, head of the New York Jewish banking house of Kuhn Loeb, invested at least $20 million, which would be close to $1 billion today, toward the establishment of Bolshevism in Russia. In its article on socialism, the Jewish Encyclopedia, published in 1905, freely admits that Jews in Russia were ripe for revolution. In Russia, socialism, has become a movement of the Jewish masses. The later Encyclopedia Judaica tells us the communist movement and ideology played an important part in Jewish life, particularly in the 1920s and 1930s, and during and after World War II. The Judaica, in fact, presents an extensive list of the most powerful Jewish leaders of Bolshevism, which included Trotsky, Sverdlov, Zinoviev, Kamenev, Litvinov, Kaganovich, and many others. The Judaica also tells us just how many Jews filled the communist ranks. It says anti-Semitism drove the bulk of Russian Jewish youth into the ranks of the Bolshevik regime. When the white Russian patriots heroically attempted to regain their freedom from the Jews, the Judaica says compact Jewish masses were utilized by the Bolsheviks to suppress such counter-revolution. Clearly, Jews and native Russians were engaged in a death struggle over the destiny of Russia. Unfortunately, the Jewish masses won. A rare photo shows the First People's Commissariat. From left to right are Uritsky, Trotsky, Zinoviev, Sverdlov, and Kaganovich, all Jewish. In 1918, intelligence services of the Western powers were buzzing with reports that communism was an international conspiracy fomented by atheistic Jews. British, Dutch, American, and other intelligence reports confirmed that Jews filled the Bolshevik ranks and that as much as 75% of all Soviet commissars were Jewish. In the Illustrated Sunday Herald of February 8, 1920, Sir Winston Churchill commented on what had almost become public knowledge. There is no need to exaggerate the part played in the creation of Bolshevism by these international and for the most part atheistical Jews. It is certainly a very great one. In the decades following the revolution, the question became, How much influence do the Jews still exert on the Soviet experiment? Although many of the Jewish kingpins in Bolshevism perished in Stalinist purges in the late 30s, none other than Nikita Khrushchev gives us an eye-opening view of just how many Jews were still in the Soviet government. Speaking to a delegation of French socialists, Khrushchev admitted in 1956 the government has found in some of its departments a heavy concentration of Jewish people, upwards of 50% of the staff. Because communism has historically been top-heavy with Jews, the Soviet policy of so-called anti-Semitism, much protested by Jews in the West, may in reality be but a ploy to distract the world from communism's Jewish past. Although most Jews have indeed been removed from high-profile positions in the Soviet hierarchy over the last 30 years, still Jews remain highly favored when it comes to immigration to the prosperous West. Since World War II, more than 1 million Jews have been allowed to leave the Iron Curtain, sometimes in waves of up to 52,000 a year. This contrasts to the grim reality that if even one Gentile attempts to escape, he would be lucky to receive only 15 years in prison. Jews, then, have played an enormous role in the Soviet experiment. Yet, as the Jewish Encyclopedia, in its article on socialism, again tells us, the passion of many Jews to socialize the world was not confined to Russia. As peddlers of socialism, it tells us, Jews must be reckoned among the pioneers of the socialist parties in America. As a case in point, a flood of socialistic Jews entered the FDR administration and helped pioneer the New Deal for America. The Encyclopedia Judaica says Roosevelt's liberal policies endeared him to the Jewish community, which shared with him an overriding commitment to the welfare state. It is very significant that in letting left-wing Jews into his administration, FDR set in motion a conspiracy that was soon to have the gravest repercussions. As part of his policies, FDR hired a German communist.
If you're struggling with any of these sluggish thyroid symptoms, like getting out of bed in the morning, thinning hair, brittle nails,
Klaus Fuchs, a scientific genius who helped mastermind the atomic bomb. Yet Fuchs also headed a ring of 8 highly influential Jews who delivered the entirety of our atomic technology to the Soviet Union in the early 1950s. They included Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, David Greenglass, Harry Gold, Sidney Weinbaum, Morton Sobel, and others. Of the 10 convicted for espionage, no less than 8 were Jewish. Later in 1957, it was discovered that the Jewish Soblin brothers delivered massive defense secrets to the Russians. They acted upon the orders of the Jewish head of the Soviet secret police, Beria. The most recent example of such treachery is the Pollard spy case, in which Jewish spy Jonathan Pollard and his wife delivered thousands of top-secret documents not to Moscow, but to Tel Aviv. Yet the fact remains that historically most Jews have favored the liberal agenda. Many have gone as far left as communism. For example, in the late 40s, intensive investigations by the U.S. Justice Department revealed a disproportionate number of Jews in the American Communist Party. In 1949, the 11 members of the American Politburo of the Communist Party were convicted. 6 were Jews. In 1951, the second-string Politburo was indicted. Of 21 arrested, 14 were Jewish. Also in 1951, 15 top West Coast communists were indicted. 6 of the 15 were Jewish.
Started flight, break left.
During the Vietnam conflict, while American boys died by the tens of thousands, Jews dominated the communist New Left in America. The Encyclopedia Judaica says the New Left included a disproportionate participation of Jews in the leadership and sometimes also in the ranks. It continues, Jews have been active in the United States in all radical movements, socialist and communist, old left and new. On almost every major campus in which the New Left was active, Jews were prominent in the leadership. Typically, they formed between a third to more than half the leadership and members. Jews also dominate the American Civil Liberties Union, a left-wing front which has tirelessly opposed such fundamental values as prayer in the schools, effective criminal prosecution, even the Pledge of Allegiance. The ACLU has been the subject of frequent congressional scrutiny. As early as 1931, a special congressional investigating committee prophetically described a role which has become all too familiar in recent years. It claims to stand for free speech, free press, and free assembly. But it is quite apparent that the main function of the ACLU is to attempt to protect the communists in their advocacy of force and violence to overthrow the government. Today, the ACLU is led by Jewish National Director Ira Glasser, the fifth national director in its history. According to a 1977 ACLU survey of membership, 27.3% of ACLU leaders were Jewish, 21.4% of members. The feminist movement, with its agenda of free abortions and lesbian rights, also contains a lopsided number of Jews in its national leadership. The three most influential feminists, Gloria Steinem, Bella Abzug, and Betty Friedan, are Jewish radicals. Jewish producer Norman Lear also heads People for the American Way, the liberal antagonist to Jerry Falwell's Moral Majority. People for the American Way videotapes every broadcast of national TV evangelists in hopes of ruining their ministries. Why does such Jewish-led radicalism prosper? Largely because the television media promotes it. And who owns the media? In its article on television, the Encyclopedia Judaica reveals that the big three television networks are Jewish-founded and controlled. David Sarnoff founded NBC in 1926. CBS was founded under the presidency of William S. Paley, also Jewish. ABC was an outgrowth of the NBC network, and another Jew, Leonard Goldenson, became its president. Gentiles usually occupy the visible out-front positions, but each of the three networks remain under Jewish influence or control. According to the famous Lichter-Rothman poll of 104 top-level media executives, published in Public Opinion magazine, Jews also dominate the lower levels of network broadcasting. Although Jews constitute...
Why should we leave? I don't know why. There's trouble in the world. Troublemakers. Like us. You're not the only ones.